Two superstars, one arena, same era, identical spotlight. Yet while Caitlin Clark is completely rewriting the laws of commercial dominance, Angel Reese is quietly fading into the background. Clark just inked a massive $50 million masterpiece with Gatorade, debuted a flavor that is uniquely hers, and crashed the servers so violently that fans were sharing the era screens like they were digital trophies. Her signature collection with Wilson now occupies a VIP lounge in history alongside exactly one other legend. The main thing is the youth. That's my target audience, honestly. Young girls, young boys, that's who matters. Contrast that with Reese footwear hitting the clearance rack, brand partners getting cold feet, and the marketing machine grinding to a halt. This goes deeper than stats or skills. It comes down to the ruthless verdict of the free market. Cash flow is brutally honest, and right now, the revenue is shouting a narrative that transcends the hardwood. We are talking way past sports headlines and straight into the heart of genuine cultural leverage. Unlocking that mainstream appeal, Clark is charting new territory. Rainberry changed the game. See, this Gatorade saga isn't just news. It is a masterclass in what happens when commercial potential collides with reality. Gatorade has been the kingmaker in sports sponsorship for generations. MJ had a bottle, King James had one, Serena held one too. Throughout that entire legacy, partnering with the titans of American athletics, not a single drop ever broke the internet infrastructure. Not a single one. Then Caitlin Clark released Rainberry, and the Gatorade servers flatlined before most users could even see the buy button. You don't need artificial hype when you have that kind of pull. People were screenshotting 404 error pages like they were rare collector's items. Inventory evaporated instantly, and the buzz wasn't limited to hoops, heads, or league loyalists. It permeated the culture. Now, consider the magnitude of Gatorade's commitment here. They didn't just slap her autograph on a lemon-lime bottle. They didn't offer a lazy cosign or a seasonal wrapper. They resurrected a nostalgic flavor from her childhood, engineered the aesthetic, and built the entire brand identity solely around her. That is a permanent fixture in the lineup. It lives in aisles nationwide, replenished strictly based on sales velocity. It sinks or swims on merit, and the market screamed its answer within minutes of the drop. $50 million is a headline-grabbing sum, sure, but the architecture of this agreement is the real shocker. Gatorade already has a Hall of Fame roster. They didn't have to do this. They had plenty of choices. They surveyed the landscape and concluded that Clark was the only one worthy of her own flavor profile. I actually saw a sign held by a kid who drove all the way down from New Hampshire. Exactly. You don't make these billion-dollar moves based on Instagram likes or Twitter trends. It stems from cold, hard sales figures and the kind of deep-dive analytics a giant like Gatorade tracks across every storefront in America. And the story those spreadsheets told was undeniable. The hunger for Caitlin Clark content is bleeding way outside the traditional sports bubble. Folks who couldn't name a WNBA team and never bought a jersey were grabbing that bottle at the register. That is the definition of crossover star power. It's the holy grail every corporation hunts for but rarely finds. Clark brought a wave so massive, it knocked a Fortune 500 digital platform offline. A $50 million contract, a bespoke flavor, a website crushed by traffic. Inventory vanished before the launch tweet even landed. That's not a trend. That is a command from the consumer. From rookie to icon. The Gatorade deal is just the latest ink on the page. But to grasp the magnitude of Clark's financial orbit, you have to zoom out. Taken alone, any of these contracts is massive. Combined, they create a portfolio without equal in the annals of women's athletics. Look at the swoosh. Reports peg that deal at $28 million spanning 8 years. I sat down with Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, everyone put a signature shoe on the table. Naturally, some moved quicker than others, resulting in the most lucrative footwear endorsement ever seen in the league. That paycheck alone would define a career for anyone else. But the devil is in the details of what happens next. The inaugural Clark silhouette is slated to hit the streets in 2026. The swoosh didn't just sell sneakers. They constructed entire kingdoms on the backs of legendary names. Consider the Jumpman dynasty. What began as a solitary silhouette for a rookie in 1985 now churns out over $1 billion every single year. Phil Knight and his executive team don't just hand over that kind of machinery unless they are betting on a sure thing. Clark's signature kicks haven't even touched the pavement yet, and the money guys are already predicting they'll vanish from shelves in seconds. Then you have Wilson Sporting Goods. This isn't a company known for handing out personal branding deals. That simply isn't their playbook. We are talking about a titan of the industry, a brand with deep roots and an even deeper sense of tradition. They are notoriously picky about whose autograph gets etched onto their gear forever. The last time they pulled the trigger on a deal like this, it was for his heiress himself, not some flash in the pan from a few years ago. Michael Jordan, the man who didn't just play the game but completely rewrote the rules of sports marketing. Jordan with the steal! Fires a beauty across the court. He takes flight and boom, the finish. Now Caitlin Clark sits at that same table. Not because she plays like Mike, but because the suits at Wilson looked at the numbers and made the exact same heavy-hitting bet on her. Understand this. A signature line isn't some fleeting summer fling. Wilson is pouring resources into designing, shipping, and hyping products stamped with Clark's identity, day in and day out. She is now a permanent fixture on their balance sheet. And corporate giants don't lock in those kinds of fixed costs unless they are convinced the athlete has staying power that lasts for decades. Look closer at State Farm, and the story gets even heavier. These guys are the old guard of sports advertising. For generations, they've partnered exclusively with the gridiron giants, the home run kings, and the hardwood heroes, all men. They never signed a woman, not a single one, until Caitlin came along. That wasn't a coin toss. It wasn't some creative director taking a wild guess on a Tuesday. State Farm sits on mountains of analytics that pinpoint exactly which faces make people pick up the phone and buy insurance. They crunched the numbers and realized Clark's fan base was a gold mine. That is a calculated move from a company that doesn't do accidents. Nike, State Farm, Wilson, Gatorade. We aren't talking about startups looking for viral clout. These are the pillars of American commerce. And every single one of them pushed their chips into the center of the table for Clark within the same 2-year window. When elephants dance in unison like that, it's not because they got caught up in the buzz. They are staking their claim on the future because the data leaves them no other choice. In just her rookie year, Clark raked in $11.1 million off the court alone. Millions were glued to their screens, cheers erupting, chaos unfolding the moment the Indiana Fever called her name. No rookie in the history of the W has ever touched a paycheck like that. It wasn't even a contest. Sportico crowned her the top earner in the league. And remember, she is still locked into a rookie wage scale. It's not the game checks that are padding that bank account. Her sponsorship deals are so massive they vault her over every veteran superstar, no matter what their teams pay them. That sends a deafening message to the industry. The free market values Clark so highly that her actual basketball salary is basically a rounding error. Then Forbes dropped the hammer, naming her the most powerful female athlete on the planet. Not just in the WNBA, on the entire globe. Across every sport, Clark is the apex predator. That isn't flattery. That is a cold, hard calculation of cash flow, eyeball retention, and the ability to actually move product in the real world. The corporations cast their ballots. Forbes cast theirs. Sportico chimed in. The fans literally broke the internet to buy her jersey. The verdict is clear. Kids today want to be like Caitlin, not Mike. Now, let's talk about Reese, retail, and the reality of the market. Dropping a signature shoe is a declaration of war. It's the moment a company jams its flag into the soil and screams, "This is our horse in the race." This is the athlete we trust enough to etch our legacy alongside theirs. It's not something you do on a whim. This isn't a limited-time offer that vanishes when the season ends. It is a brand pledging its factories, its logistics, its ad spend, and its reputation on the belief that this player is the real deal. And that brings us straight to Angel Reese and Reebok. And when the signature sneaker finally dropped, it came screaming out of the gate with that exact same intensity. Fans were clamoring to get their paws on or feet inside Jordan Reese's new Reebok kicks. Back when the ink dried on Reese's contract in 2024, the launch wasn't just big, it was a calculated explosion. Make no mistake, the clockwork behind this was precise. Caitlin Clark had just locked in her massive pact with the swoosh, and every sports outlet was buzzing about what her market power meant for the future of the women's game. Reebok decided to crash that party, using their own breaking news to position the Black Reese alliance as a direct counterpunch. It was their flag in the sand. A bold proclamation that the league wasn't a one-star show, and they had claimed the other titan. Naturally, the headlines went wild. Reese was out there front and center, loud and proud, owning exactly what this collaboration stood for. The brand spun this as their grand re-entry into women's athletics, a sector they had virtually ghosted for ages. They crafted the story with surgical precision, landing with enough boom to make everyone believe this was the start of a new dynasty. But the moment those sneakers actually touched retail shelves, the crickets were loud enough to burst eardrums. Fast forward a few months, and a corporate nightmare started unfolding at sneaker shops from coast to coast. Price slashes. We aren't talking about a calculated sale to hype a new color drop or your standard end-of-season purge. This was heavy permanent markdowns at places like DSW and the big box shoe giants. The type of panic pricing you see when boxes are gathering dust and stores are desperate to claw back shelf space and cash. Inside the sneaker game, that red flag screams one thing, and every insider knows the code. Supply completely swamped demand because the buying frenzy everyone banked on just never showed up. Forget waiting lists or sold-out banners. No one was bragging about crashing websites or frantically sharing links before inventory vanished. That massive cultural wave a signature drop is supposed to trigger? It was a flat line. Now, hold that image and flip the script to the frenzy surrounding Clark's looming Nike silhouette. As of early 2026, the thing doesn't even have a concrete launch day. Part of her massive contract ensures the Indiana Fever point guard gets to design her own kicks from the ground up. Yet, experts are already betting the farm it will vanish from shelves minutes after the drop. Retail data crunchers are forecasting chaos based purely on how fast her current Nike gear flies off the racks. The swoosh is busy constructing a massive hype machine for a product that money can't even buy yet. The hunger is there before the meal is even cooked. The difference between these two scenarios is blinding. It's the gap between a company flooring the gas pedal into a debut and one slowly backing into the bushes. Reebok's own promo moves, or lack thereof, paint the real picture. In the months after launch, the usual marketing drumbeat you expect for a star athlete slowed to a crawl. Social media pushes dried up. That relentless narrative engine that Nike and Adidas keep running for their icons? Gone. The clips, the cameos, the myth building, it all just faded into the background. For a deal touted as a game changer, the corporate energy fizzled out so fast it gave whiplash to anyone watching. That retreat? That isn't a PR tactic. Companies don't ghost their own investments when they believe they have a winner. They go mute when the suits are having panic meetings and the numbers look grim. However, weak sales are only one slice of this disaster pie. The other ingredient is what insiders term association risk, a ghost that haunts brand perception studies rather than sales spreadsheets. Big labels keep a hawk eye on exactly what their paid superstars get tangled up with in the public square. It's not about fame, it's about the vibe. What feelings, what context, what baggage comes along for the ride when a shopper hears the name? And what Reebok's radar picked up all through 2024 and 25 was a relentless cycle of drama that sparked endless controversy without sparking the positive love needed to justify a multi-million-dollar marriage. Gainbridge, serving up the ultimate assist for your bottom line. Since day one, the timeline was cluttered with repetitive social media jabs circling back to Clark, spanning every context imaginable. Corporate missives that reek of damage control, rather than stemming from a confident, standalone vision. These were press releases that grabbed headlines but failed to grab hearts. Major brands employ entire battalions of risk analysts whose sole professional mandate is to map out exactly these types of reputational spirals and forecast where the wreckage lands 3 to 5 years down the line. The verdict those teams reached regarding the Reese collaboration isn't found in some glossy public announcement, because corporations rarely broadcast their regrets, but in the ruthless silence of the budget sheets that followed, the sneakers are in the discount bin, the ad spend evaporated, the company has gone dark. In the sneaker game, that specific sequence of events speaks a universal language: the gamble busted. And right now, there isn't a shred of proof suggesting the sequel will play out any differently than the flop we just witnessed. Clark is a titan way past the sidelines, and here lies the secret about economic force that the general public gets completely wrong. It has nothing to do with who screams the loudest. It isn't about sparking the hottest debate or owning the Twitter feed on a random Tuesday afternoon. It is entirely about that split second when a living, breathing shopper stands in an aisle, clicks a link, or reaches for their wallet. When that split second replays millions of times in thousands of places, online fame either transmutes into cold, hard cash or exposes itself as empty static. And the invisible hand of the market has been broadcasting a crystal clear frequency regarding Caitlin Clark for 2 years running. By the time Clark wrapped her rookie year with the Indiana Fever in 2024, the data wasn't showing a gentle curve. It showed a vertical spike that rewrote the infrastructure. Average attendance at Fever home games skyrocketed by more than 30% over the prior year. Arenas in cities that had never seen a packed house for the league were selling every seat weeks early, solely because Clark was coming to town. ESPN and their media allies logged viewership, surges for league games that had no precedent in the entire existence of the sport. The Commissioner's Cup final in 2024 pulled ratings so high they triggered urgent meetings in executive suites about reevaluating the price tag of the league's future media rights. That specific detail carries more weight than the average fan understands. Media contracts aren't signed based on vibes or feelings. They are calculated on raw headcount, viewer profiles, and the reliability of that crowd tuning in all season long, not just for the big nights. When networks begin recalibrating the worth of a whole sport because of the needle-moving power of a single athlete, you are looking at structural economic force. That isn't a fleeting trend. That is a tectonic shift. Nike watched those metrics pile up live and pulled the trigger instantly, $28 million, spread across 8 years. Clark inked that massive 8-year, $28 million pact with the swoosh, shattering every record for footwear deals in the league's history, with a signature sneaker already in the lab before her sophomore tip-off. The keys to Nike's signature shoe division aren't handed out like participation trophies. The roster of athletes who get one is a VIP list of icons the brand trusts to sustain a global product line solely on the back of their personal magnetism. Nike constructed its modern-day kingdom on exactly that gamble with Michael Jordan back in 1985. They don't spin up that industrial machinery unless the analytics give them ironclad certainty to proceed. The move by State Farm holds its own heavy significance in this narrative. In 2024, the insurer broke its own history by signing a female athlete to an endorsement contract for the very first time. They've been players in the sports game for decades, partnering with titans like Patrick Mahomes, Chris Paul, and Aaron Rodgers. Yet they had never stepped over that line for a woman. You don't cross a boundary like that on a whim after avoiding it for generations. The consumer intelligence work at State Farm would have been relentless before they gave the green light. They surely grilled their current policyholders and modeled the demographic synergy with Clark's fanbase, stress-tested brand alignment across every sector, and ran simulations to see if the deal would actually drive the bottom line. They crunched every number, emerged from the war room, and immediately cut the check. Then the Gatorade campaign dropped in early 2026. The fallout from that launch obliterated the final lingering doubt about whether Clark's selling power was genuine or just smoke and mirrors. Gatorade's internal metrics following the Rainbury rollout revealed something precise and quantifiable. The buying frenzy wasn't just fueled by die-hard fanatics or league loyalists, it was the everyday shopper clearing out the stock. We are talking about folks with zero track record of buying hoops gear or anything related to the Clark phenomenon. They were snatching up bottles simply because the hype train had officially smashed through the wall of mainstream consciousness. That distinction is exactly what separates a true pop culture icon from a niche group of devotees coordinating a buyout. Internal tracking numbers from Gatorade backed up the theory with cold, hard facts. The hunger was widespread, the pace was blistering, and it shattered every expected demographic boundary. That is the gold standard of retail success. It is not about raw numbers, media exposure, or stirring up drama. What convinces corporate giants to go all in is proof that a star can captivate an audience that was never looking for them in the first place. Clark has been delivering those receipts for 2 straight years, and the financial sector spotted the trend long before the headlines ever did. Servers crashed, sneakers vanished, and the drinks keep disappearing. The free market has delivered its verdict silently, ruthlessly, and impartially. However, lurking just behind that blinding spotlight, a few heavy questions still hang in the air. How long can this wave carry Caitlin Clark before she finally hits a ceiling? Can Angel Reese or any rival flip the script, or is the distance now unbridgeable? This saga is far from finished. In reality, the opening act has only just concluded. What happens next is going to challenge every single truth the sales charts have shown us up to this point.